Hi, I'm Hank Haneggraaff, president of the Christian Research Institute and host of the Bible Answer Man broadcast, the Hank Unplugged podcast. I'm the author of a lot of books, but most of all, I'm here as president of the Christian Research Institute, an institute that I dearly love. I want to start this short message to you by saying that I am now 5 years removed from a stem cell transplant that quite literally saved my life. And I'm 7 years removed from an initial diagnosis of stage 4 mantle cell lymphoma. So, as I'm speaking to you right now, as a dear friend or a supporter of the ministry or someone that I hope will become a supporter of the ministry, I'm doing so with not only a heart of gratitude, but also with a spirit of resolve. Resolve to remember that life is fleeting. A resolve captured by words that I have communicated over and over again in my writings and my speakings. It might even sound trite, but it's not. Those words, only one life, soon 'twill be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. As president of the Christian Research Institute for almost 4 decades, I have had a front row seat to some of the most bizarre and dangerous cults in modern history. I think back to 1997, where media outlets literally flocked. I mean, they came in with helicopters to our headquarters in Southern California to gain perspective on the sociologically deviant Heaven's Gate cult. A cult that ended in the largest mass suicide in the entire history of the United States of America. Back then, our broadcast studios were quite literally packed with television cameras as I conducted an exclusive interview with the daughter of the co-founder of this insidious, treacherous cult. Now, fast forward 30 years. We're now in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where our headquarters is today. And we're deeply engaged, as always, in primary source research. And this time on a theologically and sociologically deviant cult that replaces the Old and New Testaments with the incoherent ramblings of an alleged female reincarnation of Jesus Christ. This is a counterfeit Christ who envisions herself to be the Jehovah of the Old Testament and the Jesus of the New. And tragically, just as with Jim Jones in Jonestown, Guyana, and Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh in Pune, India, multiplied millions, note that carefully, multiplied millions of devotees are swallowing this spiritual cyanide. And so in the coming year, the Christian Research Institute will release, God willing, a special edition of the Christian Research Journal in hopes of putting a final nail in the coffin of this insidious Eastern Lightning cult. This is a cult that was birthed in China. It was birthed in central China's Yellow River Valley. This is a cult that is now spreading from there, from the epicenter of Chinese culture in Hunan province, throughout the world. It's hard to believe, but there are millions of adherents. And this is a cult that significant religious studies specialists now characterize as merely a new religious movement. A new religious movement in, quote unquote, responsive dialogue with other Christianities. So this cult has been normalized. It's been normalized in numerous Western regions throughout the world. Well, alongside the Christian Research Institute's commitment to primary source research, we remain committed to equipping the leadership of churches in places around the world, places like India, Africa, Asia, places where multiplied millions of new believers are vulnerable to the kingdom of the cults and the world of the occult. And so sufficient funds are desperately needed to sustain the flow of biblical teaching and discipleship materials that continue to impact the lives of so many believers in these exceedingly disadvantaged places in our world. I think about the panoply of a year, the year 2024, this year, where CRI, where the Christian Research Institute, has been focused on equipping Christians in the realm of historical literacy as well. On the Hank Unplugged podcast, we provided 5 insightful broadcasts that cover Christian history from Pentecost to the present. Why did I do that? Because, in the words of Jacob Neusner, and by the way, he was one of the most published authors in history, in his words, haunting words, he reminded us that civilization hangs suspended from generation to generation by the gossamer strand of memory. He said, if only one cohort of mothers and fathers fails to convey to its children what it has learned from its parents, then the great chain of learning and wisdom snaps. That admonition is reminiscent of Moses. Moses, who exhorted the people of the promise to impress the words of the Almighty upon the hearts of their children and their children's children. To talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. If truth matters, and it most certainly does, the church must take the task of Christian education seriously. Not edutain, but educate. Equip ourselves and our children to always be ready to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, but of course do it with gentleness and with respect. And so during the past 12 months, we have as a ministry offered so much to the world. Users have accessed our website, equip.org, from now more than 230 countries. And thus, these people have benefited from our vast reservoir of unrestricted, that's a key word, unrestricted resources. That includes the Bible Answer Man broadcast, the Hank Unplugged podcast, the Bible Answer Man YouTube channel with over 1.6 million yearly views, the Christian Research Reads audio article podcast, Bible Answer Man Instagram account, Daily E-Truths, and the Christian Research Journal Online, which now is available to anyone with internet access anywhere in the world. One more task worthy of note is that the Christian Research Institute is also engaged in a surpassingly important and culturally relevant project on artificial intelligence and transhumanism. I've often said that artificial intelligence is the best marketing cliche ever invented, because there's a big difference between artificial intelligence and actual intelligence. Between artificial intelligence and what it really is, artificial information. Anyway, in the secular humanist pursuit, multitudes live under the delusion that we have killed God and that we are now gods ourselves. Under the guise of technology such as AI, they imagine that we have discovered the ultimate path towards utopia. Transhumanism takes this technological delusion a step further. Humans become deciders. Deciders not only on gender, as in transgenderism, and species, as in transspeciesism, but the ultimate dystopian delusions. A delusion in particular whereby humans may decide how long they will live and even whether they will succumb to death itself. Secular humanists have even distorted the imagery of sacred scripture to advance their dystopian illusions. I think of the liberal politician and journalist Jules Antoine Castagneri, who sacrilegiously sabotaged scripture when he said this: I will build a new Eden for myself, which I will populate with mine own kind. I will station the invisible sentinel of progress at its entrance, and I will place a flaming sword into his hands, and he will say to God, Thou shalt not enter here. In sum, a battle is being waged. And the question that now remains is simply this: will we conform to the culture, or will we transform the culture by Christ and His church? I'm deeply grateful to all who answer by your continued support of the many outreaches of the Christian Research Institute. I'm sincerely grateful for all you do to strengthen our 24/7 outreaches. Outreaches making a strategic difference at home and around the globe. Well, I'm approaching 3/4 of a century in age. So I'm acutely aware of the reality of being in the fourth quarter of my life, in a life increasingly motivated by the Apostle Paul's admonition to run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith, who, for the joy set before him, endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men that you do not grow weary and lose heart, because in your struggle against sin you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your own blood, as Jesus did for us. We have the opportunity to carry that message forward. We live in a real world. The gospel's free. Someone has to put in the plumbing. So we're asking you to stand shoulder to shoulder with us in the battle for life and truth by supporting our ministry, prayerfully and financially. You can give in a number of different ways. You can write me, of course, at Post Office Box 8500, Charlotte, North Carolina, zip code 28271. I'll say that one more time. Post Office Box 8500, Charlotte, North Carolina, zip code 28271. You can also contact us through many platforms and give. One of the primary platforms, of course, would be equip.org, our website, www.equip.org. If you have benefited from this ministry, if you have a vision for seeing how this ministry is benefiting the world, particularly in areas where people are unreached, or areas where the church is still in its infant stage and the leaders need to be equipped. If you see that vision, please stand with us. Support this ministry, prayerfully and financially. I don't often do fundraising appeals, but as we approach the end of the year, I suppose this is the quintessential appeal. Please stand with us, become a supporter of the ministry of the Christian Research Institute and all of its various outreaches. You'll make a difference for time and for eternity. Thank you so much.